It helps if we're there. I forgot Anna's back into the stream. Good morning, everyone. How are you? Good evening in America and good in the middle of the night in the UK. And just hello to everyone else in the world. Hi, Lynn. How are you? So, welcome to the ABC of Paranormal Strangeness. I'm Anne Rekovich.
And I'm Renata Daniel, elsewhere.
And what is our topic for this week?
Our topic this week is the Seaford Poltergeist in America. And this is the story that allegedly the movie Poltergeist was based on. And it's like, well, the only part of this whole thing that resembles the original story is the word poltergeist, but never mind.
Yes, and I just quickly whizzed through this morning and had a look at all the slides, and it looks like this is going to be a good one. Don't forget, everyone, I think the Fear Fest, the Temple, was it Temple Fear Fest Paracon is it this weekend, or is it? I know it's really soon. So all you lucky people in America, you can get yourself to that. So make sure you go over and check that out and see when it's happening. If someone from the Paranormal United Network can confirm the dates of that for me, that would be fabulous. Now, look, guys, we encourage you to chat and ask questions, and we'll include you in the presentation as we go. Hi, Liz. The hay fever's got me this morning. And my hubby's just come home sick. It's just after 10 a.m. here in the morning, so hopefully he'll remain quiet out there. We won't hear. No, I don't think it's that end. Oh, thank you, Cammy and Jennifer. That was beautiful. Yes, we are starting to pop up videos left, right, and centre on YouTube. If you like our sense of humour and our craziness, it's even worse on our little YouTube clips that are going up. But I'll share more information with that with you guys at the end. Just so for those who might be new to this, I am a paranormal investigator. I've been investigating now for over 10 years. I've had an interest in spiritualism and all things paranormal since I can remember, but have actually sort of studied and looked into things since I was in my early 20s, late teens. So I've been at this a long time. And Renata, what about you?
Yes, my name is Renata Daniel. I started actually as a psychic in this field, doing readings for people. I did that for probably about 15, 20 years before I actually got into the paranormal side. And that was really because I started my own business. So I've been running Newcastle Ghost Tours here for over 10 years now. And just exploring all things paranormal. It is something that I am truly passionate about. I love to dig for information. I love the history with all the stories that are associated with the paranormal, and I love parapsychology because I think it all blends together. So that's where my life sits at the moment, and I'm happy doing this virtually 24 hours a day.
Yeah, we even dream of it because we get so worried we're going to get behind of our work. We are both currently studying at the moment. Renata and I are both sort of working through this University of Edinburgh parapsychology, introduction to parapsychology. We need a dictionary to understand what half the words are that they're using because we're just simple little old ladies. We are. But we are learning so much, and thank you. As I said, my hay fever was playing up today. All right, is there any questions anyone has on either of us? We produce the True Hauntings podcast every week, and if you haven't listened to that, go check it out on iTunes and Spotify. It's slightly crazy. Particularly this week, the last episode we did was on the Vatican. And for those of you who know it, we have a soundscape, which is where we tell a ghostly story, and there's lots of sound effects and things like that. And at the very end of the soundscape, I lose my poop. I can't get through the final sentence. So you're going to have to go listen to work out what it is. And it's all Renata's fault. Okay.
I'm an innocent bystander. That's all.
Yeah,
That's all.
she didn't know it was coming. I did. And when she heard me say the first word, I saw her look at me with the eyes go wide, and that was it. I lost it. I couldn't hold it together. Anyway, shall we get on with today's topic, Renata? What are we covering in the ABC of Paranormal today?
Absolutely. So if you'd like to head to the first slide and get our faces off, that would be good. So here we go. The ABC of Paranormal Strangeness with Anne and Renata, and we're covering the Seaford Poltergeist. Now, if you see sort of me looking around, I have bits of paper and information everywhere. So I will kind of, my line of sight will be straying off to these bits of paper and everything that I have. So let us know if you have heard of the Seaford Poltergeist. So maybe you'd like to put a comment in the feed. Yes, no, maybe.
Right. Just
And
before
Lynn is asked.
Yeah, where in America you two would like to visit paranormal wise?
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Renata hasn't been to America. We were meant to go last year. Actually, we were meant to go twice last year. So we have a lot of credits. So we're going next year. But we are going to be heading over to New York and then working our way around that area over there. We are supposed to be speaking at the Women's Paranormal Conference, which is in June next year, but we are just confirming that is still going ahead before we book tickets or anything like that. And we're also waiting to hear what the government says about what we can and can't do in regards to what do you call it? Isolation when we get back. Because we can't afford to pay $5,000 each to be in a motel for 2 weeks. I'd get a lot of work done, Renata. Anyway.
Yeah, indeed we would. We'd drive each other insane. Absolutely insane. All right, let's go to the first slide.
Apart from that first slide.
Right. So I think the main part of the whole story has really shifted from the family and what the family endured or went through. And it's all gone to this particular thing, this movie, The Poltergeist. Now, we've probably all seen it, and we know that famous scene that this particular photograph is taken from, the little girl in front of the TV, and she turns around and she says those very famous words, "They're here." And look, none of this actually happened to the family. But like I said to begin with, it is apparently loosely based on the family's experiences. But when I say loosely, I really mean loosely. Like, if you when you hear the story, you'll understand that it's really got nothing to do with the movie. So let me begin here. And I'm just going to do a little bit of an introduction on what actually started and what happened. So on the afternoon of February the 4th, 1958, James Herman returned home from work, and he had to have thought his family had lost their minds when he walked in the front door, because they started to tell him this fanciful tale, and he actually thought all they were trying to do was have a joke and scare him. So according to Herman's wife, Lucille, she and their teenaged children, Jimmy and Lucy, were enjoying some time together after the children arrived home from school when they heard popping noises coming from various places around their Seaford home. Upon investigating, they discovered uncapped bottles of several common substances upended in several different rooms. The more troubling was a bottle of holy water spilling all over a bedroom dresser. Herman advised his family to stay calm and not to tell anyone. 5 days later, the family was preparing to enjoy a meal when the popping sounds were heard again. This time, Herman investigated himself and found a mess in several rooms, bottles were again opened and upended. He called the police, and the dispatched officer reported that he also heard the noises and witnessed even more capless bottles and dumped contents, but noted nothing that could easily explain the mystery. Later investigations by other police officers determined that the family had not been involved in the hijinks and that the house was not in any way deteriorating. So that's kind of the basis of the story of everything that happened. So let's go to the next slide, Anne. So, of course, the newspapers very quickly get a hold of this information, which they do, and then they run with it. And so you have here newspapers across the state recounted lids falling off screw-top bottles, porcelain figures crashing to the floor, and dresses tumbling over in the Herman house. Several theories were considered, ranging from leprechauns and psychic abilities to scientists' theories on energy and subterranean streams. The most popular theory, however, was poltergeists. And that's the house. So nothing special. It's not an old home. It's just a standard suburban home with a standard suburban family who, really nothing special. You wouldn't drive down the street and go, which house is haunted? It's got to be that one. There's nothing about it that kind of says, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the Amityville or the scary houses, does it?
No, but interestingly, as we follow this story, you will find out that the Amityville house is literally just around the corner from this place.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, I'll
Yes.
have to go visit.
All right, next slide. And there's the family. Lovely, lovely bunch of people. So they're the principal.
The father looks like a real character. He looks like a vampire.
He looks like a vampire, doesn't he?
He does.
So we have James Herman, his wife Lucille, and son James. Most, but not all of the flights have occurred near young James, and that's why I guess they would have kind of thought, okay, it must be some sort of psychokinetic stuff that's happening around James, he being the central figure in all of this. And yes, he does look, James Senior does look like a poltergeist, and that is really unfortunate because I have the same thing here. I have this thing that happens with my forehead, and it's just horrid.
It's not the forehead, it's the eyes and the nose and the widow's peak hairline. He looks like a vampire.
It's the widow's peak hairline, which is the unfortunate thing. Yeah, I unfortunately have one of those too.
Hang on. I just need to have a quick look. Can we have a look? Where's your widow's peak? You don't have a widow's peak.
I do.
It's nowhere near as pronounced as that poor old fella there.
Oh yeah, well.
All right, hang on. I'm just going to remove you out of solo. There we go. So you ready for the next slide?
Yes. So the disturbances afflicted the James Herman family, whose members included Mr. and Mrs. Herman and their 13-year-old daughter Lucille and 12-year-old son Jimmy. A cousin of Mr. Herman, Marie Murtha, visited during some of the outbreaks. So yet again, they bring someone from the family over and go, check out what's going on. So a lot of these stories kind of have these similar lines of how they develop, which is really interesting. The Pontefract house is the same sort of thing where they have this family situation where things are going on and they call in other family members to go check out what's happening. Very, very similar storylines. So the incidents began on February the 6th and 7th, 1958, with the mysterious opening and spilling of bottles in the house when the children were present by themselves. The family were devout Catholics, and Mrs. Herman placed bottles of holy water in the house. This had no effect. In fact, the incidents escalated, which is very interesting.
And once again, it's the whole bringing the holy things, and people think it's going to make a difference, and it really doesn't seem to make a difference.
No, just irritates things even more. So it was the late 1950s, and Long Island was just another idyllic post-war suburb. But as usual, things were not always what they seemed. In 1958, something strange was brewing in the typical ranch-style home in Seaford. It was a February afternoon when James got a call at work from his wife, Lucille, to tell him something strange was happening at home. His teenage kids had been hearing or had heard popping sounds that couldn't be explained. Later found to be caps of a variety of substances around the homes that had inexplicably popped off, including shampoo, bleach, and a vial of holy water. This is really interesting, this thing, because you've got to understand that it would take a little bit of effort for caps to actually be unscrewed and popped off. So it's quite an
Well, it depends.
interesting.
Were they screw tops, or what exactly were they? Because I mean, changing the air pressure could possibly make things pop off the top. But yeah, that's me and my thoughts.
Yeah, but once, and would it happen in different places in a house?
Yeah,
And if that was so, would maybe the neighbours also
you'd
have
think there'd
something
be something
happening?
happening. Yeah, you'd think there'd be more things happening around them rather than just that one particular house.
Yeah, so interesting. So 5 days later, the family was preparing to enjoy a meal when the popping sounds were heard again. This time, Herman investigated himself and found a mess in several rooms. Bottles were again opened and upended. Love that picture, Anne. Okay, next one.
Sorry.
So interestingly enough, I found this and I couldn't work out what the Popper part of it was. Popper the Poltergeist, the first haunting shown on TV. But Popper was the name they actually gave to who the character they thought it was doing the popping of all of the bottles. Weird. So they called the poltergeist Popper. Next slide. Thank you. So this is a piece that had appeared in the newspaper at the time. Bottle popping force shakes our reporter. So, of course, it says here, just the first paragraph, the mysterious plague that has drawn national attention to the James Herman home struck again yesterday while I was in the house, and I must admit that it was a frightening experience. So there were people that were coming into the home and experiencing these noises. It didn't seem to just stop. When somebody new came into the house, these things were going on.
Well, that's good. That means they had witnesses.
Yes, they had many witnesses, especially the police that came in. And I was going to say something else about that, but it just popped out of my head.
I
Never
love
mind.
Kay's comment that the father looks like the Count from Sesame Street.
Absolutely.
Right.
Oh yes, I was going to say this whole idea of everyone putting in their 2 cents worth with regard to what they thought it was extraordinary in this case. They were getting letters continually from people going, "I think it's this," or "I think it's that," or thousands of different.
It's almost like they've put it onto a Facebook group post and said, I wonder what's happening here. And every bugger becomes an expert, even though they've never read a book on it in their lives. Yeah, everyone's an
Absolutely.
expert. I watched a movie where they said it was the devil. So you've got to burn your house down to the ground now.
Now this is at the beginnings of the Satanic Panic. Because you've got the Amityville house very, very close by. So it kind of weaves into that whole story where all of this vibe is really starting to grip America. And so everything that happens would have been reported in the newspaper and become, a thrilling thing. This is like just prior to the horror movies being created and everyone loving to go see haunted and horror movies. Now, we've got a plethora of that now on YouTube and in the movies and everything. So they don't really get reported in newspapers anymore as such. Because, you can see them on YouTube. But this would be kind of the start of everyone really loving this stuff because it's just so, such an amazing and unique thing happening. So the reporting of the events of this house made the word poltergeist into a household word. J. Gaither Pratt of Duke University came to the house to investigate with Mr. William G. Roll Jr. They took the events very seriously. A book was written about their investigation of the house called The Poltergeist. Thrilling.
Oh!
And this is the detective that came through to witness some of the events. Now, I had a look who Joseph Tozzi was, and he wasn't anyone to sort of be making stories up. He was truly a dedicated policeman and became quite a character as he advanced in the police force, later bringing gangsters in and, so he kind of really made a name for himself. This would have been in earlier years when he had been in the police force. So some of the activities at the Poltergeist house were seen by Detective Joseph Tozzi and Newsday reporter David Kahn. So again, we've got lots of people who are seeing these things happen.
He reminds me of that TV show I used to watch as a kid. Car something or other, and they always used to go, car such and such, where are you? Do you remember
Car
that?
54, I think.
54. Oh my God, I'd forgotten all about that. Wow, that's a real blast from the past. All right, next one.
Yep. So Nassau County Detective Joseph Tozzi twice heard noises, ran into adjoining rooms and found that a sugar bowl in the dinette had flipped 3 feet and that a porcelain statuette had flown to 10 feet across the living room and smashed into a wooden secretary, which is a cabinet for Australian people. I myself several times heard and witnessed and observed the events, he said.
Tennessee, woohoo! Yeah, car 54, Karen said.
We're showing our age. And this is a picture that also appeared in the newspaper of the parapsychologist checking flying phonograph. So the young lad there, James, must be pointing and saying, "This also flew off." And again, a piece that was in the paper about what was happening at the house. So very much all over the press. So later investigations by other officers determined that the family had not been involved in the hijinks and the house was not in any way deteriorating. Herman called the police, who also couldn't explain the phenomenon. The Hermans did what any other devout Catholics would do next. They called in a priest to bless the home and rid it of harmful spirits. They also contacted a bishop to ask for a rite of exorcism to be performed, but they were told that the rite was not used for this kind of disturbance. Apparently, the haunting did not appear to be demonic in nature. Well, I guess that's one good thing, that they actually drew the line here and went, nah, we're not going to do an exorcism for this because obviously there isn't anyone possessed in this case. This is just some sort of a paranormal experience.
Sorry, just typing.
So some, including Herman himself, blamed the popper on teenage shenanigans.
They
But
could
when
be
a
right,
cousin of
in the sense that it might be unwittingly sort of the teenagers that are creating it.
So when a cousin of Herman's visited, she witnessed bolder occurrences while the teens sat on opposite sides of the room, ultimately convinced that it was not the fault of anyone in his family, but fearful for their safety, Herman moved them out of their house temporarily. Very similar to what happened in the Amityville house. Move them out of the house.
Yep.
So David Kahn said in a Newsday article called A Home's Bad Vibration that a British reporter saw a flashbulb leap from an end table, hit into drapes and bounce twice on the floor. So lots of different things are now happening. It's just not the popping of caps coming off bottles. So after about a month of terror, the Herman family was approached by Dr. J.B. Ryan, director of Duke University's parapsychology laboratory. Ryan believed that the presence of two hormonal teenagers could have opened some sort of chance for psychokinesis or perhaps poltergeist activity. Now, I want to read to you the report that actually went into the New York Times on August the 10th, 1958, about these guys from Duke University coming over and doing the investigation. It's not too long, but it's quite interesting. So let me go to this. So leave that slide up, and I'm just going to read what the report says here. So it starts off by saying poltergeist stumps Duke men. Experts report on Seaford incidents is critical of family over lie test. A team of Duke University parapsychologists reported yesterday that they were at a loss to explain the strange goings-on in the home of Mr. and Mrs. James Herman in Seaford. After studying 67 puzzling disturbances that occurred between last February 3rd and March 10th, attributed generally to a poltergeist, the scientists said that one explanation they found most difficult to rule out was psychokinesis, mind over matter. Mr. Herman said yesterday it no longer mattered to him what had caused furniture to fly and bottles to lose the screw tops, but he did mind the squids of detectives, building inspectors, electricians, firemen, plumbers, television repairmen, water diviners, reporters, and so-called scientists who had been running through his house for 6 months. The Duke report added that Mr. Herman's attitude had not made things easier. It noted that the family had decided against taking a lie detector test after first agreeing to it, and even after arrangements for giving the test had been completed. Mr. Herman retorted that the scientists were finding themselves in a corner and trying to get themselves off the hook. A lot of these scientists, so-called, are like a bunch of babies, he said. They want to play marbles their way, and if you won't play their way, they pick up their marbles and go home. Mr. Herman said that he had simply decided to live with the poltergeist until it made up its mind to go away. This would fit the ancient concept of poltergeist, an old German word for a ghost that makes noises. It is supposedly rarely to stay long or to cause any real harm except to scare people out of their wits. Mr. Herman explained that the family had decided against the lie detector test because they feared an attempt would be made to implicate his 12-year-old son Jimmy in the mystery. The family also includes his wife and 13-year-old daughter Lucille. I don't believe there is any of this psychokinesis nonsense about it either, Mr. Herman said. The Duke parapsychologists were less certain. In their 45-page report, they had trouble discounting all possible explanations. They very nearly ruled out simple trickery, magic, and a family-inspired hoax. Two of the report's authors were at the scene for several days at the time the furniture was flying. The two are Dr. J. Gather Pratt, Assistant Director of the Parapsychology Laboratory at Duke, and Mr. W.G. Roll, a researcher. The report also discounted the possibility of physical causes or group hallucination. There were a great many systematic investigations by experts to rule out the first. The entire family would have had to fall under the spell of the mystery to be accounted for by a group hallucination. Isn't that an interesting report to be in the paper?
Yeah, it's certainly unusual for the time, because this was in the late 50s, was it?
Yeah, 1958.
Yeah, so even to be using that sort of terminology and reporting in that manner would have been blowing people's minds. And there's not one mention of demonic or anything like that, is there? It's all about
No.
psychokinetic energy.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, what we think about parapsychology and the type of information that they were exploring has really stayed the same. It's nothing new, and they were kind of putting this out to the general public to go, like you said, it's got nothing to do with demons. It's probably something going on with the family. Um, I have not found any information that kind of leads me to an ending in this. What the reports, and we've still got some more slides, what the reports really focus on is the happenings themselves. So we don't sort of come to an end result with what happened with the family and if anything kind of proceeded from this. There was a huge write-up in Life magazine about the whole thing, pages and pages of it. But I can't get a copy of that unless I pay for it. So
Yeah.
I didn't.
Hang on, that's the one I paid for. I actually paid for you to get it. I told you to get it, and then I'd cancel the subscription.
No. That led me, that was to the newspaper. That was
Right.
to the newspaper. You couldn't actually download it from the newspaper. You had to go to the archives of Life
Oh,
magazine. And
Life
then that,
magazine, New York Times that I think I got.
yeah, and that was far more complicated. So
Okay,
yeah.
and welcome, Johnny. You're not too late. We're looking at the Seaford Poltergeist, which is loosely how the Poltergeist the movie got its inspiration. And I've got hay fever, so please excuse my sneezings and carrying on. I'm just muting the. I'm popping in and out so I can sneeze quietly. Next one.
Yes, please. So, alas, shortly after the scientists arrived, the mysterious popping noises ceased. All in all, between February 3rd and March 10th, nearly 70 mysterious events were recorded and witnessed by the Hermans or others. We have this thing too with regard to the report that I just read, where he says that Mr. Herman got to a place where he said, look, I don't really care what's going on. Just get these people out of my house. So for 6 months, he had people traipsing through the house, everyone from testing the pipes and looking at the house structure to water diviners coming in and all kind of saying their thoughts on what happened.
This sort of comes back to paranormal investigators that when there is some sort of haunting somewhere, they assume it's their right to be able to come in and dissect it and investigate at whim without permission. I mean, obviously they would have had permission to come into his house, but it's this whole entitled thing that, well, I'm a ghost hunter, I'm a paranormal investigator, you've got a haunting, therefore I'm going to come and prove that you're faking it, or I'm going to capture evidence that's going to stun the world. And it really is this entitled thing, isn't it?
And if you look at earlier investigations with people who were coming in to homes like this, they often sat and with a piece of paper, a notebook and a pen, and wrote things down as they occurred. They didn't land with a truckload of equipment and set it up and take down the house and
Let me
kind of go,
say,
we're going to put cameras everywhere and everything to just check out what's going on. The disturbance within a house is going to change what's going on immediately.
And
So,
a notebook and pen is the most valuable thing you can take into an investigation. When we've done some private ones, I've done that. I've taken them, and as we're talking and they're telling things that's happening, I'm writing it down. And it's okay to record it and take it home and re-listen to it. But you're there, do it now. And then as you're going through the investigation, you've got these notes right there to try and draw what's happening where. Oh, look, we've got the report that they said this here, and then you can
yeah,
report back to the client immediately at the end to say, well, this is what we've caught immediately, or personal experiences we've had. We'll now go back and check our recordings to see if there's anything to back it up. It's
yeah.
just awesome. And thank you for
So
those
the
people
less,
on Six
the
Stars or
less,
dollars on House on Facebook and YouTube. Really appreciate it, guys. We are out of any sort of work at the moment, so we appreciate anything you send through.
yes, thank you very much. But, we go back to the less the disturbance created, the better. Really, when you think about it,
Yep.
don't land with a truck full of gadgets and throw them into a house, because you've just
Change the
changed
environment.
everything. You've changed
Yep.
the whole environment.
Yep.
Okay, let's go back to the slides. So this is one of the paranormal investigators that we were talking about.
Mr. Pratt.
Mr. Pratt. So months later, the Duke University, so we go back to this, parapsychology laboratory staff was still at a loss to explain what had happened, although 24 years later, Hollywood took a stab at it when they loosely based the movie Poltergeist on the events in the Herman home that spooky spring. Whoa. And of course, they created the demon.
Oh, honest to God, I said my husband was homesick. He has been working outside the window of my house ever since. I could hear ladders going down and things banging out there. It's like, honest to God, you're supposed to be homesick. Go to bed.
So we have some similarities between the Amityville House events and the Poltergeist events. And as I said, this was probably a suburb away, these two houses from each other, which I found very interesting. So just a regular family near each other, suburban neighborhood on Long Island, porcelain figurine moving around, Indian graveyard blamed. Yes, yes. The major Indian killing area in between the two, made into a major movie at about the same time. Again, interesting, 1979 for Amityville and 1982 for Poltergeist. Priests called to the house, and it was a haunting in an average home.
Priest called the house and once again didn't fix anything. Should have ended with no resolution after that.
So this I found really interesting. This is from an interview of the son of the detective, the son of Totsi. And I found this on Amazon.com from the reviewer Denise Goodall. And he said, over the years, I have bought several copies of the book to give as gifts because there was a book written about it. My father was a detective who investigated the House of Flying Objects in Seaford, New York, Joe Totsi. Before the days of internet, it was pretty hard to track down these out of print books. I wrote to Dr. Roll several years ago after seeing him on Unsolved Mysteries, trying to acquire a copy. So this is his son trying to look for information. And next slide, thank you. He wrote back and told me that the case was his first real intro into the parapsychology world. He didn't have an extra copy, but photocopied the whole chapter for me. My dad never did know what to make of that case. He died last year, leaving behind the trunk of magazine articles and books dealing with the House of Flying Objects. I have for years wondered what became of the Hermans, the family who lived this nightmare back in 1958. And they're just some extra links to some of the information where I got the information for this
It's
particular
Carrie
slide.
Ann! Poor Carrie Ann!
Ah, I've been taken away.
They're here.
Mhm.
Now we just got a question here. Do you all believe the more people at a house, less likely to have anything happen?
When it comes to an investigation, Johnny, yes. The more people in a house, the less likely it is for something to happen. Absolutely. Um, when it comes to the people that are associated with the home and that the haunting is happening to, you want to have them in the house because they are your subjects. They are the people that it's all
They're
centered around.
the catalysts, basically.
Yep. Yep.
And also for me, having more people in the house, if it's not to do with the case, that it makes it worse because you are distracted by what other people are doing. And I think it also changes the environment. So it's not good. That's why when Renata and I investigate a case, we just generally go just the two of us, and we don't take equipment. We just sit and talk to people.
Yeah.
All right. Lynn's also said, I have trouble believing someone can manifest a poltergeist. I wonder if it's more like telekinesis. It's sort of the same thing. They're calling it psychokinetic or psychokinesis now, but it is that energy, that ability to move objects with their mind. That is what they're referring to is a poltergeist.
Yeah. So it's not a separate entity or energy.
You're on the money. You're on the money for that.
Yeah.
Johnny says, wasn't Amityville a hoax?
Well, parts of the story have been attributed to truth in some way. It's when other people come in and start to add this to the story and
They're adding
add
layers.
to start to embellish it. So you've got to really dig down to what actually happened. And there's enough information there if you dig hard enough to work out what actually happened prior to the family moving into the house. So when the murders occurred, which is a story in itself, and then you've got the family that's moved into the house, and that's another story in itself. So whether anything spooky actually happened when the family moved in, the family associated with the hauntings, whether anything actually happened or whether they were feeding off the information that was being fed to them about the murder case. You've got so many different factors happening there that,
Well, let's face it, they've moved into that house during the Satanic Panic era, and they would have been primed for whatever was happening around that time. They would have been fearful. They would have been thinking there's going to be ghosts in the house. And I do believe something happened. But whether it was paranormal or not, we will never know because sadly the Warrens came in and started saying it was demonic. So nobody,
yeah,
without proof, without evidence, just their own personal experience or their own belief on what was happening. So it all just got blown up. The media got hold of it. But if you listen to our True Hauntings podcast on Amityville, we have got so much information there that will help answer that question. And yeah, little Carol Ann died. Oh, yeah, and the movie was supposed to be cursed. You know, I always tell people this story, but when the scene with the pool that they were digging and the skeletons start popping up in the water, they were real skeletons, and they didn't actually tell the cast until they were in the water and the skeletons were popping up around them.
yeah,
So that look of sheer terror was sheer terror. Oh, so that brings
yeah.
us to the end of this presentation. But want more? because if you head over to our YouTube page, we have a plethora of awesome little videos that you can watch. And as you can see, we have been all around the world. Renata has not yet been to America, but we will get there. We've got a story there about the mystery found in Robinson in Australia. Now, when we go on a road trip, we are always going for a paranormal reason, but the road trip itself ends up being far more hilarious than the location that we end up at. So you've got some little videos there. We've got we went to Dracula's castle, like Vlad Dracul, and we went to Loftus Hall in Ireland, and that's just the driving to the thing. We've been to the Ancient Ram Inn. But hang on, just let me get out of this. And if I'm right, that should actually play. Is that working?
Yes, it is.
All right, Renata we haven't left yet.
Yeah, we're known for big things here in Australia.
We are.
So we're heading off
Big
to
butts,
the
big
big
boobs.
thing, the big thing that is around Robertson.
What's that?
Oh, should we tell them now?
I think we wait till we get there.
Yeah,
It's very exciting. It is worth the stop.
It is.
The other thing she found that was really interesting was in Alice Springs, but we thought that might just be a little too far.
Just a little bit.
So we're going to go to the big thing in Robinson. Hang on to your socks and your knickers because you're going to get them blown off.
Absolutely.
Just discovered our destination is 130 metres, so we're in the car ready to drive. Oh, no, there's a car. Oh, there's a car. Nana knocked my car. Hi, Nana. This is all very exciting, and it's such a huge destination, distance away that we do need to drive.
Is it straight ahead? It is. It's straight ahead.
No. This is only 2 minutes, guys. It's not a big one. It's down to the left.
It's down to the left. It's down to the left.
Oh my God. And there's a little bit of swearing, just be warned.
It's down to the left. How could we miss this yesterday? I don't know. It's supposed to be the big thing. There it is!
Holy shit!
Oh my God! Oh my God!
It's the giant turd.
It's the big potato.
That was worthwhile stopping.
We didn't even see
We
it.
did. We came past this because when we looked at the workshops and cooking school and went, oh no, there's a fucking big potato next to it that we missed.
Sorry. How did you? We were just here over the road.
Home of the Highland Spud. I'm even going to wind down the window so you get a decent look. Look at the colour.
Oh, it's just
That is
magnificent.
such a natural potato colour.
It is, and such a great shape for a potato.
It
too.
is. It's so uniform
It's
all over.
perfect. It's the
Put a
perfect
couple
potato.
little lines in there.
Mm-hmm. And I love the way it's right in the middle of the township.
Yep.
You can't miss it.
Yep.
Or you can.
Well, we did.
We did.
We did. But that's okay. We'll know next time.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to drive quickly because there's a bookshop down here and I've got to drive before
Oh
she
my
sees it.
God.
No, we're going,
Oh
we're
my
going,
God.
we're
No.
going, we're going.
It's a bookshop. It's a bookshop.
Oh, no.
It's a bookshop. Let me out.
Hey, run away.
Damn you.
I've got my hazard lights
I
on.
hate you, woman.
So there you go, guys. That is just a little taste of what we do. I'm just going to go to the next slide, if I can get out of this. Hang on. Oh, no. I don't know how to get out of this now. Maybe if I go back a thing. See, I'm being too clever for my own boots now. Yeah, you talk while I get this onto the next screen.
Here we are. Yeah, so the thing is that we do take our investigations quite seriously, but we also have an entertaining time. I think we just entertain ourselves and hope that everybody else is entertained along the way, because there is far too much seriousness going on in between all of these things. And yeah, frankly, it can get a little bit boring being so serious. I think it's much more pleasant to entertain people.
Yep. So there we go. That's just our little end screen there. With thanks for watching, and you can find us on all those various platforms there. And if you do head over to YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel. So, yeah, thanks, guys, for indulging us. I'm just going to pop that back out. Now, I also have to do that because that'll upset people.
If anyone has any questions, yeah, we've got about 5 minutes left. If you'd like to throw some questions in, and we will try and answer them the best way we can. And we've got a curly one straight up. Are you guys fans of the Warrens and agree with most of their findings? That would be a no from me.
Yeah. Look, my problem with the Warrens is that it's all personal opinion. It's viewed from their own belief system with no science behind it at all. So they could walk into my house and go, I can sense there's a demon here. You've got demonic energy. You need to get this house blessed. And if I didn't have knowledge, I would look at these people who are experts and go, oh my God, there's a demon in my house. I would freak out and I would go into total mental collapse. There is no proof there. I mean, the Amityville is what gave them the opportunity to start speaking to the world through as experts, and they are self-proclaimed demonologists. So it's just, look, they certainly brought the focus of the world onto the paranormal field and elevated the paranormal field, but I don't think they've done it in a good way, in all honesty.
They had a moment of opportunity during their time, and they grabbed it. Fair enough.
Yep.
It was during the times of the Satanic Panic, and maybe in their minds, what they were doing, it was exactly the right thing. They were trying to draw people away from this notion that dabbling in this was going to be something that people should do. They were pulling them away, which is part of their belief system. If you're you do not do these things. You do not entertain ghosts or spirits. You do not connect with them. You do not practice necromancy in any way, shape, or form, because it is wrong. It is against the belief systems that they held close to their hearts. And many Catholic people or Christian people held close to their hearts. So you've got to also put it in context of the time and of their belief system, and that most probably in their minds, they were doing the world a great favour.
Yeah, they had total belief in what they were doing. I don't think they were doing it. I don't think originally they were doing this as a deceptive thing at all. They were just trying to protect people's souls.
Yeah.
We've got a question there from Naz. Will you be going back to Dracula's castle? If money is no object, yes, I would love to go back, but it was quite an expensive trip by the time we paid for, because it was a guided tour with Dave Schrader. It was worth every cent. I mean, there's no way I could have done that on my own. It was amazing. But there are so many other places we want to visit before we go back and revisit somewhere like Romania. It was freaking amazing. All right, hang on. Beats the big prawn. Yeah, the poor old big prawn got eaten up by the bushfires. It's still out there, but yeah, Lynn, we have a book addiction. This is our problem. Like, I'm sitting here now and there's 3-4 books on my table and I'm surrounded by books. I'm rescuing them. That's what I'm doing. Right, Johnny wants to know, have you ever had an experience that made you want to leave?
No.
No.
No. It would intrigue me even more, and I would want to stay and work out what's happening and why it is triggering me to feel uneasy. So I would want to stay and find out more.
Have you ever had a demonic experience?
No.
Oh.
Look, as a child, I was probably frightened half to death by some of the things that I experienced, but that was because of I had no information. As a child, you have such limited information about what is going on, especially if you have parents who don't indulge you in that sort of information or have no idea, no concept. It's not it's not their thing. And so when these things happen, as someone who might be experiencing sort of psychic stuff as a child, more often than not, you end up being absolutely scared and petrified of what is going on, because you are very different to everyone else, because you're experiencing things that are very, very different, and there is no real explanation for you. And so, yeah, as a child, my view on these things would have been far different to as an adult grown up who has spent years and years and years trying to look for really good information to explain what's happening. So knowledge is power.
It is, and I'm going to say that some experiences I have had, other people with a different belief system may think I've had demonic experiences. I have been scratched. I have been pushed. I have had things happen to me that way, but I don't believe in the demonic angelic realm as in Christianity. To me, it is just either a frustrated or a angry spirit that or energy that is trying to communicate with me. So I don't believe in demons as in like Catholicism and all of that. So that's it's all through perspective, I suppose. There seriously is a poltergeist house out west. Have you seen people's videos of way out west, long drive, but worth it? Is that the Gyra ghost poltergeist? I don't think there's video.
Or is it Monte Cristo?
Monte Cristo doesn't have a poltergeist, though.
Patricia, you'd have to give us more information about what that place is. Yeah,
that sounds interesting. I think I've sort of answered that about the "Are you sure?" So from different people's perspectives, it would be.
And yeah, Johnny, look, it really depends on what sort of experiences that you've had and how they've been explained to you. And we have not had every single experience that there is on earth to experience. And we are only knowledgeable on what has happened to us. So the next experience might be the thing that changes our minds. Who knows? We don't know until we have had that experience. You've got to be also, it's a lot. That's an afternoon discussion, and it is a great discussion to have, because the more people that can get together and talk about the different experiences they have had, the more we can learn from that and sit down and as adults try and find good and relevant information that helps us explain what's going on.
All right, we're running out of time here. So do you ever have an uneasy feeling? Yes. Yes, I do. You sort of get a gut instinct when you walk into a location, whether you feel safe or not, and that is our nervous system that is wired to protect us from a possible threat. So yes, I have felt uneasy, but once I understand what is going on, I will lose that uneasiness.
Yeah.
You, Renata?
Yeah, absolutely, 100% guaranteed.
What do I think of Amityville? I think it was a family who was scared and terrified, and it was a mountain made into a molehill. A molehill mountain. So, and other people jumping on and embellishing and making
a lot of people benefited from that story. A lot of people benefited from the tragedy that occurred and the family that suffered from that. So we've got to take that into account.
Thank you, Patricia. That would be fabulous. Would love that. Just being oh no, don't worry, Johnny. We don't take offence to anyone, and it was a good question. No. It was actually a really good question, and there really would be good people who think like that as well. So I'm actually grateful for you saying what you say. All right, we need to get out of here. Yes, happy Equinox Day to everyone, wherever you are in the world. And we will get out of here because we've got to go and record an episode of True Hauntings today. This one's given us a little bit of a confusion on how we're going to do it, but please, if you could support our socials, we would really appreciate it, because by you giving us hearts or thumbs up on our videos and subscribing to stuff, that means we will keep making content. We will keep coming here and doing this, because there's no point in doing it if you guys aren't going to watch, and you guys are our people. So thank you for
And
watching.
as Johnny has given us so many great questions, we appreciate questions. We appreciate questions that make us think and try and work things out and give solid responses, because that's what we're all about. That's what learning and sharing information is all about. So thanks, Johnny.
Yep, thank you so much. And now it is time for us to leave. So I hope you all have a safe week, and we'll see you all on the dark side.
Bye.
Bye.